Joker Folie et Adieu, which I think is French for shared madness. And I really wanted to like it because I'm a big fan of the first movie. I think the first Joker movie is excellent. And not because I think it celebrates carnage or rioting or somebody like Arthur. I mean, Arthur wasn't an entirely evil person in the first film. There was a lot of evil in him, but there was also a capacity to love that just was never reciprocated, and that sort of drove him mad. And I thought the first film was a really effective study for like a comic book film, a really effective study on somebody who's put it in a high pressure environment where it's just like there's all these elements, like dark elements of Gotham City cranked up to 11 that just push this character who's like on the brink just off the edge. And how a portrayal of how a character like the Joker could possibly exist, because the Joker, I mean, it's speaking in terms of like the comic book lore, he's iconic, right? He is the villainous character for representing chaos without motive. And that's what makes him such a good villain for Batman, right? Is that Batman's a detective, essentially. And detectives are all about establishing motive to get to the bottom of something. And Joker is somebody who doesn't have motive. He just does things, right? For the sheer chaos of it. Because he thinks life is just a big joke. And so it's cool to like take a movie and have it be a very grounded movie about the possible birth of a character like that in a real life context. I mean, that's an interesting thing to study, and I thought it was quite smartly done, and I think the way Todd approached it was the right way to approach it. The way he puts it, it's like I watched behind the scenes interviews with him, and he talks about approaching the movie as like coming in through the back door, sort of, where he just wanted to do a movie that was a character study of somebody, like some extreme character. And he just wanted to tell like a realistic character study movie, and then he decided later, oh, what if we make it the Joker? And so he what I respect about it is he started with the complicated thematic stuff first, and then sort of came through the Joker image that way, instead of just right off the bat, like, okay, we're making a Joker movie. It's got to have this, it's got to have explosions. He's got to do this to somebody. And it's just like, that, I think that maybe that could turn into a good movie, but like, I feel like Joker deserved a more sophisticated movie than that. And that was what I got from the first one, and I really liked it. Sorry if I'm kind of rambling. Again, my brain is fried, but I'm doing my best here. So I was on board for the second one, man. Like, even the trailers. Like, I thought, this looks interesting. And I was actually on board with the fact that it was a musical. Because I actually saw the relevancy of it, which a bunch of people online have noticed just don't. They're like, why is it a musical? This is dumb. I hate musicals. Which I kind of understand. Like, my big problem with musicals, I've said before, is that they grind the plot to a halt. And then you're waiting for the musical bit to end so you can just get on with the story, right? But there's certain musicals like Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic, where the musicals will function as time jumps and also move the story forward with like each sort of lyrical beat, which I found really entertaining. So I thought maybe this Joker will be like that. And also, like, in the first Joker movie, even though I don't think it was initially written into the script, Joker dancing, particularly when he shoots those guys on the train and then he runs into the bathroom and he starts dancing. That was like improvised on set between Joaquin and the director Todd Phillips, but it ended up being an iconic part of the movie because it's sort of like this is how Joker sort of manifests. Like he sort of this shadow self emerges from him through just doing this stream of consciousness dance that he's doing. And obviously the character Joker and the idea of like dancing and singing, like I can see the connection there, you know? And so when I heard that the second one was going to be a musical, I thought, oh, okay, so it's taking this sort of iconic dancing thing from the first movie and expanding on that. And because it is important to the character, it is key. And now they're expanding on that and turning it into a full-blown musical. That could actually work. I saw the potential in it. And this movie had a lot of potential. There is some stuff in it that's functional. There is some thematic heft to it. There is something good there, but it's just buried under crap execution, frankly. Like, so like Lady Gaga, I was looking forward. I thought she was actually a really interesting choice for Harley Quinn. The fact that she actually can sing is going to offset Joker's, like, because I assume it's actually going to be Joaquin singing, but he's not a trained singer or anything, so it's probably going to sound a bit awkward. He might have had some mild, singing lessons for, preparing for the role, but he's obviously not going to, I don't think, even with that, he's not going to be a strong singer, but then you have somebody like Lady Gaga who can play off that and sort of even it out. I thought, that could be really cool. And then I went to see it. And fuck, man. I mean, the theater was almost empty. And the people that were in the theater, people were walking out. Like, I rarely see that. But people were walking out of this movie. I didn't walk out. I mean, very, very rarely do I walk out of a movie. I'm usually, I will usually give a movie a chance all the way to the end, no matter how bad it is, just because I respect the medium, and I'm just like, let's see what you got. Maybe this is all building up to an ending that's actually satisfactory. And this didn't do that. I was actually quite bored throughout most of Joker 2. I was interested at first, even though it was like a drag. Like I was thinking, like, come on, let's get going here, because it was taking a while to like. I mean, in a way, it was fine. Like we had like one or two scenes. Okay, first of all, it starts off with a cartoon, which I really liked, and it actually gave me high hopes for the rest of the film. So the Joker 2 opens with a sort of Warner Brothers short. Animated short, 2D animation. And it's about Joker sort of being at the top in the spotlight and his shadow sort of starts acting independently of him and taking him over completely. And I thought that was quite interesting. And I thought, okay, this is a good sign. Like maybe we're going to dive deeper into some Jungian archetype here, like the first film did, but maybe on a more significant level in this case. Like this could be good. And then the movie starts, and it takes a while to get going. But like the key plot points are there fairly quickly. Like Arthur's in the institution. He's been behaving. So, and the guards are kind of friendly with him, and they decide to put him into like a musical class to help. It sort of helps patients on good behavior sort of rehabilitate to a degree if they can be creative and have fun performing and singing something. It's like can help some patients. So they decide to put him in there because he's being good, and that's where he meets Harley. And then he meets Harley and starts talking to her, and there's some chemistry there, and they do have chemistry, and it works. I mean, it's well cast. Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, I think they're both strong actors. Joaquin in particular. I mean, he just gives it 100% like he did in the last film. And Lady Gaga is a strong actress, and it's obviously not the first time she's acted. I mean, she was in A Star Is Born. I haven't seen that, but I heard she was quite good in it. And yeah, after that, those initial plot beats, it just takes a while to get going. I'm sitting there going, oh, come on, like this is taking a while, but hopefully I feel like based on what I've seen in the trailers, it's going to build up to something quite intense. So maybe this is it's a slow burner, but we'll get there. You know, I just got to hang in there. And you think that the plot is going to kick off with, like, spoilers, by the way, okay? Harley starts a fire in, like, the projector room when they're all watching a movie. And that sort of stretched believability, in my view, because it's just like, why wasn't anyone watching her? I mean, these are all Arkham patients at the end of the day, regardless of bad, good behavior or not. Like, they should be carefully watched, especially if you're gonna give them like matches and shit to light cigarettes. Like, you got to make sure none of them starts a fire, and that's what she does, and it works, and it starts like a whole panic, and Harley and Joker run out of the institution during the panic. But they don't like escape and hit the streets and wreak havoc or anything like that. They're quickly recaptured and brought back in. And Arthur's thrown into solitary confinement, I think. And then the plot is just, it's a drag. Like, it never gets going. Only at the very end does it do near the very end does it do something a bit visually interesting, where it's just like, oh, like I'm awake again, because like fuck, I was drifting off through, like, it's just sags so much around the middle, because there's no zigzag to the plot. It's so straightforward, right? It's like you think they're gonna escape the institution, and then they get recaptured, and then they're back in. And then it's just about Arthur waiting for his court date to come up, his trial, because he's on trial for killing all the guys that he killed in the first movie. But there is something thematic in the situation of him going to trial that actually works and has a lot of potential. There's an interesting dilemma at the heart of it, where in order to escape prosecution, Joker has to admit that he's insane, and that Joker was this like other part of him that's not him. But then you have Lady Gaga saying, "No, Joker is you. You are the real Joker." So you have a character that's torn at seams. He's sort of split into two, right? And he doesn't know which way to go. Like, it makes him nervous. Like, if he takes on this Joker persona, like, no pun intended, it's big shoes to fill. Because he's like this citywide symbol, perhaps more broader than that. But then if he says that he was insane and that was just some crazy part of him that wasn't him coming out, then Lady Gaga isn't going to be interested in him anymore. And there's just, it's not executed well, but there is something there that had potential that they could have done something with, but it's just fundamentally the way it's done is just not interesting, because the plot is just there's nothing sort of interesting or unpredictable about it. It's just like he's in the institution and then he goes to trial, and then a bunch of it just plays out like a courtroom drama where nothing really is happening. And the only like visually interesting parts are parts that are in Arthur's head that aren't actually happening. So like there's some musical sequences that are like, oh, the production design is cool on that. The lighting is really good. Like the singing is cool. Arthur's beating this guy to death with a stool and he smacks the judge with the hammer. Like I saw that in the trailer and I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I thought that like actually happens in the story, but it doesn't. All the colorful set pieces that you see in the trailer, they're all just shit that's happening in Arthur's head while he's sitting in court being bored. And that's essentially what the audience is going through. So it all just feels inconsequential. Like all the visually interesting stuff is just fluff and not moving anything forward. And so you're just waiting the whole movie for Arthur's trial to be over, and it doesn't end. It's just on and on. And what else? So, I mean, I was looking at my phone, man. I was so bored. And there's some stuff here and there where it's just like, that's a cool piece of dialogue. That was a cool visual. There's some really great cinematography in it. There's some really good lighting, like some great shots. There's a oneer that I thought was really well done. That was much later in the film. I was technically impressed by it, but the story is such a drag. And then it gets to finally the end of the trial, and somebody blows up the courthouse. Some crazy supporter of him. And then he escapes. He's being sentenced, and he's found guilty because he I'm skipping over some stuff, actually. I forgot. I'm kind of forgetting the structure of it in my head. I think it's before his sentencing that the stuff happens with him and the guards. Because he's like on trial one day as Joker. Like he's in full makeup and everything. He's got the suit on. And he does this like cringe Southern accent for the whole trial. And it's just like, whose idea was this? Like, is this... It felt cringe in the wrong way. Whereas like Joker appearing in the first film on the Murray Franklin show felt cringe in the right way. I don't know if that makes any sense. But like he's in court and doing this weird like Southern accent. And it was honestly irritating to listen to. I'm like, please stop doing that. Why do you have to put the voice on? It's like, fuck, was that Joaquin's idea? Is that something that the director just let him throw in because Joaquin has this kind of crazy improvisational quality to him where he just... I don't know whose idea it was, but it just didn't play well, I don't think. And he insults the guards while he's on trial. And then when he goes back to the hospital, they're fucking pissed. And they kick the shit out of him and they sexually abuse him. Well, that's just it's strongly implied. And that's the thing that sort of mutes him. That's sort of the things that finally switches him off. Like his Joker persona. And then so the whole movie sort of builds up to this, frankly, and I think deliberately anticlimactic moment where he admits that there is no Joker and everything he did was just him, Arthur Fleck, doing it. And that's all he is. And Joker is just a sick part of him that doesn't exist. I mean, it's not like he's not acknowledging it as a persona. He's saying, I did all those things. I'm Arthur. Again, there's some interesting stuff there with the shadow self and identity and split personality, but the movie didn't do anything clever with it. it's such a bleak downer ending, and it seems deliberately fashioned that way to piss off the fans. I wonder how much of like the contemporary political environment is factoring into this, where I don't know, maybe that's the wrong way to word it, but I think like when the first movie was successful, Todd Phillips maybe got the impression that the wrong people liked his movie, you know? Like I felt like the pressure got to him that he was making a movie that was an endorsement of like being super antisocial and chaotic and evil or whatever. And then I Todd may have decided like, oh, I shouldn't have made that movie, and I've inspired this a bunch of film goers who are appreciating it for the wrong reason. And I think he thought there were so many of those people that he thought, okay, I'll make this movie as sort of an antidote to everything, that basically hits the rewind button on everything that was done in Joker 1. It's almost like an apology for Joker 1. And it's just like, you shouldn't apologize for Joker 1. It's actually a good movie. And I'm one of the fans of the first movie that knows what you were doing. I know Todd wasn't trying to endorse a character like Arthur and all the terrible things he did. It's not a he's not a character to be looked up to. I feel like he way overestimated the amount of people who liked the movie for the wrong reasons. Like, I totally saw what he was doing, especially with the shot near the end of the first movie where you see Bruce in the alley and his parents are dead. Like, that one shot at the end of the Joker movie is brilliant, and it's just sort of the antidote to the whole thing. I really like that first movie. Unfortunately, I'm not the type of person who thinks like, oh, the first movie's ruined now. Like, I have no problem enjoying films in a series in isolation, saying like, that's the good one, that's the bad one, we don't have to watch that again. But this one is still good. Some people, I think they're like, oh, I can't even watch the first one anymore because the second one was so bad. I'm not one of those people. I'm like that with seasons of television as well. Like, I'll still watch the early seasons of Game of Thrones and really appreciate them. But then, some people, just because of the 8th season, they completely write off the show entirely. Like, I can't do that. Because there's just, I've said before, like, seasons of television and films are sort of individual bubbles of practicality where all these ingredients come together, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I've been on a lot of film sets, and frankly, I think it's a miracle that anything fucking good ever gets made. So I appreciate good movies and good seasons of television when they're made, because all the right ingredients came together at the right time. And that's not always going to happen. That's just a fact of life, So you need to be prepared for eventually a sequel or another sequential season of television being made that's not as good. Like, that's going to happen. So if you're of the mindset where if there's one bad thing out of a series of films or a television show, you're just going to write it all off, then you got to be prepared to do that with a lot of different shows and movies. Especially now, because Hollywood is just more underwhelming than ever, and just up its own ass and sort of crumbling. They're gonna grab a bunch of, they're in a state now, and have been for some time, where they're searching for old IPs and saying, what can we do with this? Let's turn this into a thing, and it sucks. And it's like, what, am I gonna hate the old stuff now just because this new thing that has the same IP was shit? Like, no, I take good movies and good seasons of television where they come. It's like Dexter. That show had a terrible ending. The last season was really weak. But those like first 4 seasons of Dexter are fucking awesome. Like, really good stuff. So, like Joker 1 is still untainted in my opinion. I'll still watch that and rewatch it and enjoy it. And I just have to sort of not think about Joker 2 while I'm doing that. Because this does seem to be like Todd just sort of hitting rewind on Joker 1 and sort of undoing everything. And like many critics have said about the movie already, it puts Arthur Fleck back at square one, where he's just a nobody, and this really terrible fate really happens to him at the end. I mean, he's abused by the guards, and then spoilers, okay? At the very end, he gets knifed in a quite horrifying scene. He gets shanked in a hallway in Arkham, and he's just left bleeding on the floor. And that's it. that's the ending. Like, it literally pushes in on his face, his dead face, and it cuts to credits. And it's just like, fuck, man. Like, what? How am I supposed to get excited about this? I mean, I feel like Todd was actually trying to piss off the fans of the first one. Say, there you go, here's a fucking movie, fuck you. That's what you get for liking the first one. It does kind of feel like that. I didn't want to believe that was the case, because I thought that was so juvenile. It's like Todd Phillips is smarter than that. But that actually seems to be the case here. I think there's some element of that going into the decision making here, which is a real shame. And I thought the ending of the first film was brilliant because it was so symbolic and open-ended and almost, I hesitate to say the word biblical because I don't want to like elevate it too much, but it has this sort of this effective simplicity that biblical stories often have, where it's just like distilled and has like a powerful message in it without having to say too much in terms of plot. You know, it felt like it was really tapping into something important about life. The first one, about madness, you know, about how like the last shot is sort of symbolic. It's a metaphor for like madness will always find a way to sort of escape. And with the Bruce Wayne in the alley image, that's another metaphor for there will always be like some agent of order will manifest in absolute chaos when things are an absolute mess. There will be some semblance of order that sort of pops out of nowhere and then sort of establishes a new way of doing things, and then the inverse happens where eventually chaos takes over, and it's that relationship between order and chaos, right? There's that first movie had that symbolism, and it was really powerful and effective in it. At the end of Joker 2, I'm going, what's the metaphor here? There's nothing clever, there's nothing substantial here. It just seems like a really deliberately downer ending where I guess the message is Joker really wasn't a larger than life character. He was just a nobody. He was ill. You know? And then he died abused and bleeding on the floor. And then that's it. And it's just like, what? I mean, it's obviously not an endorsement of Joker or any of his heinous actions. I mean, that's a good thing, but it had none of the symbolic or metaphorical power of the first film. It felt like that was all just thrown out the window. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. I mean, it was boring. It was disappointing. It was boring, and it was actually irritating to watch at times. Like there were times where like I was getting annoyed. It wasn't simply that I was bored. I was just like sort of, like, why are you doing it like this? And obviously, like a lot of people feel the same way. I mean, the critic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes are in the toilet. Same with the audience reviews. Theaters, I'm seeing lots of videos and people sharing screenshots of empty theaters because nobody's going to see it. And people are walking out. I noticed like a bunch of people were walking out like around the second or third musical set piece where people started realizing, oh, it's just going to be this over and over, and none of these musical pieces move the story forward at all. Like, I'm checking out. Bye. I didn't stay to see if there was an after credits thing, but I doubt there would be. I think I'd be very surprised if there was, but I was pretty sure there wasn't anything. Um, I think that's it. I really can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now. Sorry if I missed anything important about it, but I wouldn't recommend it. Just stick with the first one. First one is good. Todd Phillips actually did a good job with the first one. This second one, I don't know. I think he got it into his head that I think he felt bad for making the first one, and he felt bad that it was so successful and had this success that it did, that it struck a chord with people in the way that it did. I think he ended up resenting that, and then I think he made this sequel at least partially out of spite, which is a real shame because you could have done something really cool with this, but then I don't know what. Like I was thinking, like if you're gonna make a good Joker sequel, what would the ending be, right? And there's a number of options. I mean, Arthur Fleck without his makeup on, dead on the floor in sort of a pathetic and downer end for him. It's like, sure, that's an ending. Probably not the one I would go with because you're not advancing the idea of Joker in the Batman universe at all. It feels like you should do that. That's what the first film did. It's just like, oh, that could be Joker, could not be. Maybe the real Joker's out there. Maybe he's the Joker and he's going to escape and go on to do all this crazy shit that Joker does. And it was open-ended in an appropriate way to sort of let the comic book lore come into people's heads and, fill in the gaps from there. If you know what I mean. It basically just closed, not only closed-ended, but just hitting rewind on everything. And so, like, what are other possible endings? Well, I wonder if the ending that most people would have been happy with from a Joker sequel is basically sort of like the Batman the animated series, where it's just like you see Joker and Harley, they're like crime bosses, and they're sort of leading an army of criminals or whatever. And maybe the last shot of a Joker sequel that could work is that you see Joker sitting behind like a desk or something, and he's sort of the clown prince of crime, and he's got Harley Quinn by his side smoking a cigarette, something like that, and then you sort of end on that image where it's just like, oh, okay, now he's a serious force in the city now. But I don't think I even would have wanted that. Like, I don't think a sequel should have been made at all. I think the first Joker movie, that is the ending. Like, I think that first movie should have been made, and that was a great place to end it, and it should have just stopped there. Even if you were to expand on the idea of him actually being Joker and becoming the clown prince of crime from the comics and the cartoons, I feel like that's just going too far in that sort of grounded Joker film universe. Like, it's appropriate for it to stop where it did, and there shouldn't have been a sequel. But I saw the trailer and I wanted to believe there was something here. And there are fragments of something there about the idea of the Jungian shadow and identity and split personality, and is like redefining what's real about yourself. Like, you sort of let this shadow self inhabit you, and you are that person because action is character, right? And you do things being sort of possessed by the shadow. And that becomes no longer just some sick persona in your head, but actually the real you. So there's something there that could have had something done with it. I don't know how you end it, because I can't think of a satisfying ending to a Joker sequel. Even if you were, like I said, to lean into like he's the clown prince of crime now. I don't think I even want to see that. So disappointing, and I wouldn't recommend it. The movie sang itself in a circle. Yeah, the movie doesn't go anywhere. It is basically a big circle. Musicals need music that lasts, like Wizard of Oz and Willy Wonka are a masterclass in how to do a musical well, otherwise meh. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of the musical content in the film is not even like some extravagant set piece where they're all in costume and everything and it's actually good singing. A lot of it is just like I would say like half of it is just really awkward singing in the grounded actual diegetic story space, if you know what I mean. Like Joker will just in mid conversation start singing awkwardly and badly and just be doing that for a little too long. And there's no showmanship about it. It's like just Arthur Fleck grounded in the real world, sitting in a chair, and then he just starts saying his lines like lyrics. And there's just nothing compelling about it or even audibly pleasant because there's no, like, he's not trying to, sometimes he's like mumbling the lyrics and it just goes on for too long. And you're just like, oh, fuck's sake. Like, come on, let's go. Just get on with it. If you're going to do the musicals, at least keep it restricted to the part where it's like a big stage performance and you've got effects and lights and costumes and everything, you know? I mean, as much as a problem that is on its own, because it doesn't move the story forward and all the action within it is inconsequential. At least that's more pleasant to watch and listen to. The first few times I didn't mind it, but every fucking time they interacted made me want the nightmare to end for real, and I have to give credit to Lady Gaga's. She played the role well. Lady Gaga is good in it. Yeah. I mean, she's obviously a good singer, but she's also a strong actress. There's subtlety to it as well. I mean, like the part where they meet on the stairs and Lady Gaga's Harley has lost interest in Joker. You can totally see it in her eyes that all the interest that she had in him is gone. That's when Arthur admits that he's not Joker and he was just Arthur all along and there is no Joker. After that, Lady Gaga is just totally not interested, and you can see that in her face, just in her eyes alone. Like, she's a strong performer. I think Joker being bad at singing is intentional. Oh, of course it's intentional, but it's just not... I can't get on board with it. Like, it's just not entertaining. It doesn't move anything forward. It's not nice to listen to. There's nothing visually interesting about it. So it's just a drag. Quinn being good at singing is sort of like the yin and the yang type of thing. They complement one another. Yeah, I was talking about that earlier. I think that I thought that would help more than it did. The idea of Lady Gaga's strength in singing balancing out Joaquin not doing that sort of thing. Any shot at a trilogy? No. I mean, Todd Phillips has said, I think that's it for me. So, I mean, and good. Because, I mean, I don't even think the second one should have been made. And I think it's doing terribly in terms of financial return. Because I think it had like a $200 million budget, and it's only made, I think it's only grossed like 70 million worldwide so far. So I don't even know if it'll make its money back. At the rate that people are walking out and probably getting refunds and now not going to the movie as a result of word of mouth, I really doubt that movie is going to make up the money that it spent, and it's going to be a major loss for Warner Brothers. So even if Todd did want to do a third one, I don't think they would let him. I wonder if he hates that everything has to be a franchise now. Maybe he torpedoed the character to prevent it. Yeah, I mean, it could just be some meta middle finger to Hollywood. I mean, I'm not entirely against that either. I mean, depending on the execution and if it's funny, like Freddy Got Fingered immediately comes to mind. I think that movie's fucking hilarious. I mean, it's incredibly crude. Like, you have to like that sort of thing, but I think it's funny, and it is the sort of movie that I think is a middle finger to Hollywood, where it's like, you want a movie? Here you go. Here's your fucking movie. Enjoy. But Freddy Got Fingered is actually pretty entertaining and funny. This is such a downer, and it's boring and it's irritating. What happened to Harley in the film? Does the film set her up to be the next main protagonist? No. Once Harley Quinn loses interest in Arthur, she's just... The last scene you see her in, I think, is on the stairs, and then she just walks away. And that's it. You don't see her again after that. There's no, like, setting her up as some super villain or whatever, you know what I mean? The first Joker for me is basically a 10 out of 10. I don't know if I would give it a 10, but, like, I would give it like an 8 or 9. It's just really solid, and there's no fat on it, and it's got some things to say that aren't obvious, and I like when movies do that, where it's just like, fuck, there's good ideas in here, but I can't quite put my finger on them. I like a movie that makes me think like that. The first Joker did that for me. Heath at the end, John. Heath Ledger showing up at the end. Yeah, I doubt that's happening. I wonder if Quinn was supposed to represent the audience and mirror the audience's disappointment in Arthur not being Joker. Maybe he thought people missed the point of the first film. Yeah, that's an interesting observation, and I think there's probably something there that's accurate. Right, I think there's still a lot to explore, from where Joker is clumsily and nervously delivering speeches and killing Murray to being in total control and 10 steps ahead. Yeah, that's true, assuming that Arthur Fleck does eventually become the Joker. And I think the part of the point of the first Joker movie was to preserve that ambiguity. Like maybe he turns into the Joker, maybe not. And I think actually more recently Todd confirmed that wasn't the actual Joker. So, I mean, and obviously with the end of the second film now, we've confirmed that it's definitely not Joker. But the ending of the first movie at least left it ambiguous. Like, he could become Joker, who knows? I thought that was a strong element of that film.